Okay, so UVing. UVing is the laying out flat of our three-dimensional model for the purpose of painting it in Photoshop. And so here I have a model. I've started UVing it, and so I have a few things going on. Everything has to end up in this central square. Okay, so as you see, as I'm working on it, I have things tossed off to the side. Now, how do you get started? Here's my basic model. Okay, so I'm going to UV this half of it before going on to the second half there. And righto. So there's several ways to get started. All right. Usually the place you start is just going to automatic mapping and doing a big map like this. And it's all laid out, but it's not useful. I mean, I'm not going to want to try to paint and match up the color on the edge of this guy to the edge there. That's just, it's not worth my time to do that. So I'm going to spend a fair amount of time here, flatten things out, grouping things, cutting them, sewing them, and so that I can logically paint them when I get over to Photoshop. So basically, it works where we assign the UVs to the faces, then diving in here into this mess, what we do is, okay, so here we have the beard, and let's see, we probably want to grab these guys and connect them up. So I'm just going to select these edges. Yeah. Okay, so I just did a move and sew, which is this button here. So move and sew. So that just brings everyone nearby. All right, so it's just, so that'll just sew these edges. So I click on one edge, it automatically selects the paired edge. All right, I can see things out here. I can also select things out here if I want to. All right, so good, good, good. Move and sew, that sews those guys together. Now the lips here, I want to cut those off so I get a hard edge, right? So I'm going to want a hard edge in that texture. So I go to the separate UVs, all right, and so there we go. I select one UV, so that was a quick right mouse button. Select shell. Okay, so that gives me all the guys attached. And so I can pull that off and go. And so now the lips are mostly separate, but I didn't get all of them. All right, so let's go back in here. Let's make sure that this edge is cut. I'll grab these edges and move and sew. And so now there's that whole lower lip. And in my texture, I can just put the lip color there, and I have a nice crisp edge right there, a crisp edge there. Okay, if I wanted a soft edge, maybe I'd leave it attached, but then leave a little gap there. So I didn't have to worry about doing the crisp edge in Photoshop. Let the model and those, if you need a hard edge, let the edge of the polygon do the work for you. Okay, so let's see, that guy needs to be sewed, and these guys. All right, so we're looking to make sure that nobody's overlapping and everything is in a format that is logical for me to paint in Photoshop. So that's going to be different things in different sections of the model. All right, so like if we look at the arm here, okay, so there's the arm. It has various pieces broken out at the moment, so I have to collect those guys up. All right, so I'm not selecting those guys because they're just going to automatically bond. So, just skimping on a selection there. And let's see what these guys do. Now those guys are already bonded up, so I'm not worried about them. All right, So yeah, it is a mixed bag of precision and sloppiness. So so yeah, so it's just really going around grouping things and um, selecting with the edges to cut or to sew, moving the UVs individually, and assigning to faces. Let's look at the one I've partially already done. So maybe I can get a little work done today on this. And all right, so here we have, I have the crown. Now this is done for a game, so I can overlap. So I make sure that the symmetrical stuff is all stacked on top of each other over here. All right, so that's what I'm doing there. This section here is that ring going around, and so I have that straightened out so I can paint straight lines and stuff on it in Photoshop, right? So anything like that I want to straighten out, and so that's really just easy because it's let's see if we grab like these guys here. Okay, so those I'd probably want, ooh, okay, those are right on top of each other. Uh-huh. You see how I have three there, but it looks like one line there. All right, so we'll go over here to unfold. Aha! Oh, that was a happy find. I mean, you're going to find it eventually when you get into Photoshop and you're realizing, oh, I'm not getting any color where I expect to. All right, so let's just ease these guys up, give it a little bit of space. And all right, so I'll just do a selection through here and this guy. Let's get this a bit bigger for you. Right out. And so there, that's pretty good. So now these are basically straight over there. Oops, actually those need to be unfolded too. All right, so unfold, good. All sorts of little things we're finding today. All right, so if I grab these, not those guys. All right, so we got all those, and then this little button here just allows me to push them up like that. All right, so we have several strategies here in UVs. Right now, the plan is that I lay out the UVs and then I move the textures to it in Photoshop. Alternatively, what I could do is I could build out my texture in Photoshop and move the UVs to fit the texture. So hero objects I like to do this way because I want to spend more customization time. Background objects, all right, things where I need like a lot of windows. Yeah, I'm going to put one window in the texture and then stack all the UVs for the windows on top. And that's going to save me time, save me screen texture space. So, the trick is to bring in enough texture so that it looks good. All right, let's look at that arm. So here's that arm, and I'm slowly unfolding it. And okay, so it's at the moment it's in sort of this bent position, and I could texture it there in the bent position. I've decided this time I'm going to um, relax it, and it just gives me the ability to paint a little bit more of the wrinkles in there. So it just gives me a bit more space there. And so, yeah. So like the top guys, I will straighten out a little bit. I'm not totally happy with them. We also have these tools up here, which will allow me to, just sort of nudge things. So it's more of a brush paradigm. And okay, so like that guy needs to come down. So it's just a little easier on the selection, and I can do regions of stuff. And yeah, so the thing is, I have to be able to get some color on everybody in Photoshop, right? So any overlaps well, any pinches are a problem. Um, and oops, I got some five sides that still need to be dealt with. Yeah. So in games, you can overlap things. For things I'm going to render, no, I don't want to overlap. All right. So then again, I would have a set of UVs for the cloak, a set for the hand, because the hand would be a separate piece of geometry, and a set for the face. So it's less critical. All right. So I did a skeleton a few years ago, and yeah, the skull had its own texture, and the pelvis, and I had one rib texture though for all of the ribs, and then I had a generic bone texture for all those little ones that you barely see anyhow. I'm not going to spend my time painting all 270 bones on the body. All right, so that's that. And then once you get things laid out, it becomes a bit of puzzle work. So I select shell here, and I have to make certain decisions. Stuff like the face, I'm going to spend a lot of screen real estate on it, right? That's going to be a big texture coming in. The chair, probably a lot. It's a fair amount of the model. Um, so it's really a matter of balancing stuff. If we select shell here, okay, that's the top of the head. We're not really going to need much detail there, and we're not really going to see it. So I'll just scrunch that down to one square, and okay. All righty. So another thing you may want to do, or you should do, is use a checker texture. So here I've just tossed in a checker texture because, in this workflow, you're going to be doing the Photoshop texture later, and you want to know how this is going to stretch or deform across the, how much the UVs are going to stretch or deform your texture, but you haven't made it yet, right? So by using this texture, you can easily see, gee, okay, green number 4, I'm having problems with. Those UVs are really twisted, right? And that's not going to texture well. If I'm trying to paint in a bump map with a little wrinkle there, I'm not going to get a good result because of the way the UVs are laid out. And so I can come back into here, and I'll just use this tool mainly because I grabbed it. All right, okay, there we go. All right, so then I can slowly go through and, see about getting something logical. All right, so this is a great way to visualize, what you're going to need over in Photoshop. Uh-huh. Okay, so like that guy needs to come down. And okay, so these guys need to come down a bit. Need to select more UVs. So, all right. All right, so there. And the thing is, the better job you do here, the easier time you're going to have in Photoshop. If you skimp on this, if you don't spend enough time here, then you're going to be paying the price when you're in Photoshop, and you're going to have a hard time doing stuff, or the task will feel impossible because of yeah, you'll just be fighting the UVs that you've painted. So those are the major ones that I use. Yeah, so it's basically you have the yeah, you apply the UVs to the faces. You cut and sew the edges, and then you individually move the UVs. So there's a lot of changing in selection. One of my favorites is the select shell, which allows us to just grab a whole unit, and then there's a rotate button that just allows me to rotate it, so I can easily go, gee, I can fit it better over here, sideways. Um, yeah, I still have a lot of stuff to get in here. So it's um, it's not something you sort of do once. It's something that you actively work and rework, trying to figure out what's the best combination of things. All right, well, so that's UVs, and hope that helps. Have fun.